Hi, everybody. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, November the 29th. Grade 1 stakes action at Churchill Downs. It's the prestigious Clark, carded as race number 11. We're going 1 1/8 for 3-year-olds and up. $600,000 is the purse. Remember that Black Friday week of sales at shop.drf.com. Great deals all around. You can save big on DRF's hottest handicapping tools. Here's the field for the Clark. You can access free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Download them. Handicap along with us. Tom's Day Ta, the number 2, 8-5 morning line favorite. This is a horse that certainly has credentials, winning the Fayette last time out over a sloppy track at Keeneland. He's going to be forwardly placed in this race, but there might be a couple of others with intentions on being on or near the lead. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector for this race, and we've got Tom's Day Top pretty far back. Major Cabby has some speed. Mr. Buff we know has some speed, and Mr. Freeze has some tactical speed. I think this will be a solid pace. It might very well be a fast-paced scenario.
It might very well. Yeah, you're right. It could be. It's certainly going to be a fairly run race. So I don't think if it's not the kind of race where if you like a closer that you have to be worried that he's not going to get the right setup. I think they're going to be going pretty good up front.
The number 1 draft pick is a graded stakes winner in Southern California. Only 4 starts this year. The best performance, a second behind Higher Power in the Grade 1 Pacific Classic. The Pacific Classic this year, a very tough race for me to rate, simply because there were so many notable no-shows. And I know Higher Power is a very, very nice horse. I'm just not sure where I want to put draft pick. He came out of that race in the Awesome again. He really didn't fire. Again, I'm not going to hold that against him. I think it's fair to say he's taking a little class relief here.
I think he is too. Listen, he didn't run well last time. I didn't want to get too caught up in his Awesome again, because to me, his prior 3 races when he came back from the layoff, I think they're all good. And I still think he's a horse who could keep improving. I think he still has more upside in him. He's the kind of horse I'm not dismissing lightly in this race.
And he's the horse that you can see the last chiclet on your Timeform US pace projector. If this red bar scenario comes through, he could be running at the end. The 2 is Tom's Day Ta. His merits are obvious on paper. He brings 5 consecutive triple-digit Buyers speed figures to the Clark party. He won the Fayette last time out by open lengths over Mr. Freeze, albeit on a sealed, sloppy track. He got right up close to the pace. He never gave Mr. Freeze a chance to get a breather, and he just turns into the stretch. And in the last 16th of a mile, you'll see him change back to his left lead, but he's really pouring it on.
Yeah, he just sort of overwhelmed Mr. Freeze in this race and won. He wins it very convincingly. Listen, he's just been in really good form since they come back off the layoff. And, as opposed to maybe some of the others in here, Dan, he wants to be forward, but as the pace is fast, he is fine sitting off the pace. He's going to get a good trip in this race.
The number 3 is Mosito Rojo, and he did no running in the Grade 3 Fayette. But when you're a horse that's 15 for 18 lifetime on fast going, you can give a horse a mulligan based on the fact that he ran over a sloppy track. He had a 5-race win streak snapped in the Fayette. And maybe if you simply want to say, stepping up to face horses like Tom's Day Ta is just too much to ask, fine. I never want to underestimate a horse like this.
I don't want to underestimate him either. He is a little slow on paper, for some of the bigger names in this race. So it does feel like he'll need to run his absolute best race if he's going to win the Clark. But he's the kind of horse I think you could use somewhere because he's really talented. He's really game too.
Ever since they started using Major Cabby's early speed, he has blossomed. Either that or he really likes Keeneland, because his last 2 races during the Keeneland Fall Meet, boy, they were pretty impressive victories with the best Buyers speed figures of his life. Here's his last race. It was an optional claimer on October the 24th. Paco Lopez just put him right on the front, and he's going to keep going. This was a good field of allowance horses. Blue Ridge Traveler, No Dozing. They're always sort of knocking at the cusp of the Grade 3 types, but it's a big step up in class, and if you believe the Timeform US pace projector, it's a big step up in terms of pace as well. He's likely to face a much faster pace than he has in his last 2.
Yeah, this is just listen, I respect his last 2 races, and I respect his trainer. This is a huge class test for this horse in a race where he's going to have to go a lot faster early.
Snapper Sinclair is a pretty cool horse. He's a millionaire based on his win in the Tourist Mile, a $750,000 race, 2 starts back on the turf. I've always thought of him as more of a turf horse. I think he surprised a lot of people with his race in the Breeders' Cup. Steve Asmussen had him ready to go off a little bit of a layoff. And while no match to Spun to Run, the fact that he was able to run 4th with a 96 Buyer, I think it shows that this horse is in good form right now. I've always been concerned about him when the distances stretch out. I'm worried about him at 1.125 miles against these kind of horses.
I am too. I'm just going to have to stand against him over the distance, but I have no knocks on his recent form. His Breeders' Cup was good. His Tourist Mile was even better. He actually had trouble in that race and still won. And listen, maybe he's a better turf horse, but his dirt form is fine.
Fact Finding comes into this race off a couple of sprint wins, and he was right up close to the pace in both of those races. I'd expect him to be close to the pace again. Here's his most recent victory at Keeneland, another optional claiming race. He's the gray horse on the lead. He's going to face a bit of a challenge here, but he always has this horse in the teal silks measured, and he's going to pull away right about at this moment, and that was kind of the winning move for Fact Finding. Mile and an eighth, big question mark. This sort of class, big question mark.
Yeah, he's got a lot in front of him in this race if he's going to make it 3 in a row. I can't say I was blown away by either of his last 2 wins, Dan, but he got it done both times. This feels like it's going to be a lot tougher for him.
New York bred Mr. Buff appreciates a mile and an eighth. He's won 7 of 10 at the 9 furlong distance, but I think you and I kind of agree that he's probably best against those New York bred competition. I'm not sure he's a graded stakes horse. They tried it in the New Orleans handicap over the winter at the fairgrounds, and he was, 7-2 that day, and he just didn't do anything. Here's his win in the Empire Classic. This is just a far cry from the caliber of horses he's going to be facing at Churchill Downs on Friday. Mr. Buff did what he had to do to win this race. I'm just worried if he has to face a lot of heat against better horses, if he's going to be able to transfer this form to a Grade 1 race.
Yeah, that's how I look at him, too. I love Mr. Buff. I really respect him. He loves 9 furlongs and 2-turn racing. But they've tried this a couple times yet, and he's just no match for the better horses, especially when the paces get fast. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to be right on the lead to run his best race, but he wants to be forward. And if they go fast, it's going to hurt his chances.
I know it's popular to bash this 3-year-old crop and say it's no good. I think Owendale's a bit underrated. We saw him run 3rd in the Preakness. His Travers, he was a good 5th, considering he was down on the dead rail every step. In the Oklahoma Derby, he must have been hung wide every step of the way, and he won that race. And in the Breeders' Cup Classic, he was just up against it, and he didn't have the greatest trip either. At 15-1, and you're looking for a little bit of upside, maybe Owendale is that kind of horse. I'm just not sure he's the best closer in the race. I think especially if Tom's d'Etat is comfortable rating in mid-pack.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm a big Owendale fan. I'm kind of looking at him. I'm actually surprised they're running him here. I was kind of just sort of looking at him and thinking, boy, they're going to have a good 4-year-old on their hands. I kind of want to wait and give him more time to develop. He can win this race, Dan, but he's going to have to take a step forward, I think.
We saw Mr. Freeze finish 2nd, a no-match 2nd to Tom's d'Etat in the Fayette. Maybe the sloppy track had something to do with it, and I also think he's slowly running himself back into shape. The Clark is going to be his 4th start since January, and I wonder if Dale Romans has just had the Clark circled all along. His win in the ACK was a good performance. It showed he doesn't need the lead to win. Last year he proved a mile and an eighth was no issue when he whipped draft pick in the West Virginia Derby, and last time out he was down inside getting pressured. This time around, I think he tracks a couple of overmatched pace horses, and I think there's going to be a point in the Clark where he takes the race over. Whether he's good enough to seal the deal or not, I'm not sure. 15-1, I'm willing to take my chances on a horse who has run fast enough races to win.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with any of that stuff. I think he can get a better trip in this race, and getting off of a sloppy track onto a fast one, if that's the case, I think that helps him too. I didn't take him in this race, Dan, but he's a good price, and I'm not way against this horse.
Bravazzo, the number 10, goes out for Mr. Lucas. He just missed in this race last year. The problem is he's only raced once since the 2018 Clark, and that was in the Pegasus World Cup in January. So we're dealing with a 10-month layoff for a horse that has credentials. 2nd in the Preakness, 2nd in the Haskell, 3rd in the Travers, 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, 2nd in the Clark. That being said, this layoff may be just a lot to overcome, and I wonder if Mr. Lucas is using this race as a prep for the Peggy.
He very well may be, Dan. I am going to take a positive view on him because, first of all, he's good enough to beat this field.
Absolutely.
He can get a good trip in this race, and he's 30-1 on the morning line.
Now, you really said it all. This horse has all the credentials in the world, and again, if Lucas has this horse ready, he's going to fire. He likes Churchill Downs. He likes a mile and an eighth. Seeking the Soul likes Churchill Downs. He likes a mile and an eighth. He won this race back in 2017, was third in it in 2018. And after he won the Stephen Foster in June, I think a lot of folks were figuring he was going to be one of the better handicap horses in the country. He was one of the notable no-shows I mentioned early on in the Pacific Classic. The Awesome Again was only slightly better. The Breeders' Cup Classic wasn't really very good. What has happened to Seeking the Soul? Has he just gotten old overnight since that Stephen Foster? Or getting back to Churchill, the home cooking is there, he's going to get some pace, he'll come rolling late?
Yeah, the positive view of him is they took him to California for the summer and it just didn't work out for him for whatever reason. He doesn't like the tracks out there, whatever it is. Getting back home to Churchill, maybe it makes the difference, Dan. He's another horse at the right price. I could use him somewhere.
Mike, you know I'm Pioneer Spirit's biggest fan. I never once dreamed I would see him in a race like the Clark, coming off of a 104 Beyer speed figure. He was claimed for $150,000 out of his last race, which was a good effort over a couple of decent horses, but considering his running style, he likes to be forward. He has a lousy outside post position. There is plenty of speed to his inside. He must prove himself, and he ran well in the Oakland Handicap earlier this year. This is a tougher spot. From a fig standpoint, he fits. I'm not sure from a class standpoint he fits.
I don't know if he does either. He does have some fast races. His running style is a real problem in this race, especially from post 12. But if nothing else, this horse is a really hard trier, man. If he's involved in the stretch, he'll fight you right down to the wire.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 1 Clark. Your DRF race of the day, Tom's d'Etat, weighed the horse to beat. I think the key race for him, Mike, was that Alley Dar. Because I think before that race, a lot of folks thought he's just a need to lead type. He's got to be close to the pace. If you throw a little speed at him, he's going to come unbuckled. No, he rated, he finished. That's where Timeform US has him here, and I don't think you're supposed to worry about his running style anymore. He is simply the horse to beat.
That's exactly how I looked at him. That's why I put him on top. I really like his recent form, and as you say, in that Alley Dar in particular, he showed that he will sit off a fast pace and still run.
Mr. Freeze is going to be my top selection in this race. No match for Tom's d'Etat last time out. I think he has a little bit more upside than Tom's d'Etat. However, he's going to be my top pick in the Clark. It is your DRF race of the day. Remember to grab those free Formulator past performances on the home page and on the race of the day event page. Approximate post time 5:56 Eastern. Best of luck.